Alrighty, I think we are on. Hello everyone, welcome aboard to another episode of the American Rail Club. It is your host and founder, Demetrius Villa. Here we are, conductor on a crazy train. As I don't know what else to say about this, but this is pretty nuts, guys. So, pretty sure you've heard about this one this week. About Amtrak asking passengers in wheelchairs to pay $25,000 for their ticket. What was going to be a $16 ticket, a $25,000 ticket. That is insane. Hello, everyone. Yes, they did not, but we're just going to go through this story to just see how ridiculous. This is just a bad PR mess that they had. So, just to clarify, just to spoil the story for everyone, they did not have to pay the $25,000, but how this story even came up as a headline is just bonkers, and just goes to show you just the amount of bureaucracy in the United States, and especially with Amtrak, that just makes this just go crazy. So we'll go through all that. Hello Dan Air 1022, hello Matt L, hello FLNY Mike, hello Alpha, hello FR, hello SD. Hello everyone, how is it going? Okay. Alright, I'm gonna head out. I just said hello and you're ready about to go? So let's just go through this article, and then we'll also go through its sequel or its conclusion over here. But this is just insane. So the gist of this story is that they had to pay a service fee of $25,000 to take out the chairs in order to allow these passengers to get onto the wheelchairs. So for those of you that don't know, yes, this is your username, right? But here's the thing. In Amtrak, let's do this. In a world that makes sense, you have Brightline, right? Brightline trains. Okay, I like this shirt. It's actually the comfiest shirt that I have here, and we're probably going to be coming out with new shirts later on. We're gonna start the store almost completely clean, the Teespring store. So for those of you who have been guys who have ordered our shirts and whatnot, we're basically starting the store almost completely clean. We're only coming out with 3 shirts in February, so we'll be coming out with that, and I'll be keeping you guys on board with that. This week has just been crazy, especially on Amtrak. So Amtrak told 2 people who use wheelchairs that their proposed trip from Chicago to Bloomington, Illinois, a 124-mile trip normally requiring a $16 ticket, would cost $25,000. Now, in a world that makes sense, on Brightline trains are designed to be level with the platform. So if anybody who's on a wheelchair, all they have to do, the platform would come up and they'll just have to roll on. They don't have to look awkward or anything like that. They just roll in. The aisles are more than the width requirement to have a wheelchair or somebody with an electronic wheelchair to just go in. They have empty spaces for them to go ahead, plop themselves down, and just relax. On Amtrak, it's kind of... I kind of feel sorry for watching people on wheelchairs or the handicapped get up on Amtrak, because half the platforms are at ground level. In Amtrak trains, you have to climb up onto them. So it's a good ways to climb up onto these trains. And, to get people who are handicapped, they have to be assisted on board. So they'll have actually 2 crew members or so. I've seen this happen dozens of times. They go ahead and, take the person up and carry them themselves. And then they go ahead and take the wheelchair up and, carry that on there. And, it's just not good for the health or dignity of the person to just have that happen to you. So it does violate, in some sense, it would violate the ADA and the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's from Moises Nunes. So, I mean, it's just pretty insane that this would happen. Somebody here made a Facebook account to join our group, so I'll go ahead and if you haven't been into the group yet on Facebook, you can go ahead and join us on there on American Rail Club. And you can also join our Discord if you're all about the Discord. Haven't been on anything for the last week or so because I've just been crazy busy with work. So the National Public Radio was the first to report this. The case of a group of Access Living, a Chicago disability service, and I believe a senator also as well. Yes, Tammy Duckworth. She lost both her legs in the U.S. Army in Iraq, which again, I've said a lot of stuff about that war, how, terrible and cruel it was to send, so many young people to a war there, and, we haven't gotten anything out of it at all. So, I mean, for her to come out and say that this was outrageous, and tell Amtrak off about this as disappointing. She said, quote, "Disappointing that Amtrak leadership appears to have failed to offer a public apology for its initial mistake." So Amtrak did rescind that fee of $25,000, and they said that there was a policy to remove the seats. So here's the thing about government. There's all these fees and upcharges for making sure that something is taken out. It's like, if you were to go to, a healthcare or to a hospital or something like that, and if you didn't have insurance, the cost of x-rays would be, thousands of dollars. So Amtrak, for some reason, is doing the same thing. And in government bureaucracy, they can do this and, nobody cares because they're not paying for it. So they can charge the public, $50,000 to clip 10 by 10 grass for public safety or something like that, and nobody would bat an eye. So things like this apparently, I guess, was an Amtrak policy that just was never covered or never taken care of on the onset when it came out. And whoever was the idiot that just let this happen, because they are an idiot. You cannot just say and see, oh, this makes sense, $25,000 ticket for somebody in a wheelchair for a $16 ticket. Yeah, just give it to them, hand them the bill. You know what? They'll just, no worries, $25,000 is pocket change. Who cares? Whoever was the idiot that let that happen should be fired. Honestly, should be freaking fired. That is just insane. And not only that, the amount of negative press this got, and another embarrassing headline for Amtrak. I mean, imagine this. Imagine seeing that. That is insane. It is crazy. Let's check out the comments here and see what you guys see here. Yeah, the thing is, Amtrak probably the thing is with Amtrak and their access to money isn't as, let's say, as easy as Brightline. And Brightline doesn't have that much access to money either. Now, granted, Brightline has been lucky to have the infrastructure already set there and have the FEC already, dole in tons of money to go ahead and upgrade these tracks even further and to go ahead and get the bonds and all these loans available to go ahead and build and gather the capital to build these stations. But Amtrak is on a different level playing field. They have the amount of access to the government coffers. However, the amount of access that they have in comparison to, let's say, the Department of Transportation for roads and for airways is a lot more constrained. They can't just go ahead and say, hey, we need $100 million to go and, build this. Or let's say we need, at this point, they probably need $100 billion to go ahead and fix up the Northeast Corridor. The government's not going to do that. I mean, but if you're the Department of Transportation said, we need to build a new superhighway connecting the whole entire United States and we need to do all that, it's a lot easier. So, and that's just a sad thing, and that really goes to show that we really don't have sort of a market system in the United States, or some people still think that we're laissez-faire and that, the economy will fix it and all that. No, it's more of a quasi-planned system in the United States, and it's not, made the best product or the best person will, because in a natural system it would, but we don't have it. So there's things to talk about, that how things should be and how things ought to be. This is just how things not ought to be and how they should not be. That's just a bad decision on Amtrak's terms. Yeah, they do have a wheelchair lift on some airlines. In fact, half the airlines, it's just easy to just go on there and just roll down some of the aisles if they're large enough. On something that's small, like like an Embraer, forget it, or Embraer as they say in Brazil. Do I enjoy the Trains publication? Do you recommend following them? They're probably the best publication in the United States to get news on rail. That's probably the best top one. I mean, you just go to trains.com and then just go ahead and click down and find the publication. FLNY Mike said, I think people mostly won't take the train all that much. That's all. Post-50s rail travel is seen as something that's sort of avoid. Yeah, and that's... Again, in the United States, the way that we think about rail travel has changed so much from the 1950s to now. If you hear squeaking in the background, that's the dog that wants to play. It's probably Leia. We're two dogs, Hans and Leia. So, the thing, and this is the problem again. It's mostly an American problem. It's not the rest of the world that thinks that trains are outdated and old. It's that the perception that we have here in the United States is that most of the trains that we see are freight trains. And when we see freight trains, most people, when they see freight trains, are either it's stopping traffic, the gates are down, and it's crossing through, and it's going to take forever. So people don't see trains in a positive light here in the United States. And when we do see our passenger train systems, they look pretty bad compared to the rest of the world. I mean, they're dingy, they're outdated and old, and that's the problem that we have in the United States, is we can't fix the way people perceive rail unless we have an example, and people are not going to take an example or try to build us an example unless they know in the United States that we can build this. So it's sort of a catch-22 in a sense. It's odd, and hopefully things will change, and that's why Brightline hopefully becomes that example that people are now starting to see that it is possible, that it can be done. And yes, there is a way to circumvent having so many government regulations or having the government do it and having a private company just go ahead and build Brightline. Yeah, and then you have some of the older, especially most of the typical older boomers, not all of them, but some of them that's still in this mentality that once in a while on excursions, but they're not that not in this day and age. No, they're not that efficient. When will the Orlando station open? That's from Rob K. The Orlando station is going to be opening up sometime in 2022. That's the latest that we've heard. So let's finish out this Amtrak story over here. So they did back away from the charge. This was a terrible response. I mean, this was, a day after. It took way too long for them to respond to this. This should have never have come out in the beginning. So they were able to pay their Amtrak trip. And this is a good thing, at least, this senator does with Tammy Duckworth, who is a Democrat from Illinois. And it was a good thing that she did say that. Probably if she did not say that, the story would not have gotten as much... I was about to say it would not have gotten better legs, but that was I probably would have been in poor taste. But this article would not have been high up in the news if it was not for her and saying that. So thank you very much, Senator Tammy Duckworth, and thank you for your service, and thank you for standing up for people. That was another thing I should have said. I'm doing Joe Biden gaffes all over the place, guys. You know how it is. We look, we all have problems. We all have things. It's just you take it all in good light. No big deal. And get more staff on board, yeah. Highcast Infrastructure said there's a solar eclipse coming to Texas in April of 2024. Do you think TCR could start running trains before the eclipse? Could they? Again, probably 2024 is realistically when that service would actually begin. I don't think they'll probably get it by then, especially at the rate of speed that this is going in with the someone's saying the Discord invite doesn't work. Yeah, I can probably make another Discord invite. Actually, let me see if I can make Highcast admin over here, and he could probably be able to do it. There you go. You're a moderator now. You're a wizard, Ari. So, but really the problem with Texas is really the amount of legalese that they have to go through and all these hoops with the... dang, I should have had like coffee or something like that. I haven't eaten anything since noon. That's pretty bad for me. I usually do. But really the big thing about Texas... what they're going against the opponents and that court case of saying that they're not a railroad according to, and their use of eminent domain, that's going to bog down and lag behind the progress that Texas Central Railway should be using to actually build. In reality, they should have already been able to build this. It doesn't take that long to build a railroad with the modern systems that we have and the modern technology. I mean, China can, rack out a mile of rail every week. So, I mean, or every day, I think, or something like that, how fast they were able to do it. But, I mean, it's relatively safe in China at this point. They haven't had many accidents like they used to have before. I mean, even in terms of if you want to do accidents per 100,000 passengers, even with China's, I would say, record with high-speed rail, which is probably the worst record when it comes to high-speed rail safety, it's still a lot safer than driving in a car. Especially in China. If you've seen some of those Chinese disaster videos online, it's pretty bad over there. It's Final Destination. Now they're starting World War Z and the Last of Us timeline over there. Yeah, speaking of China, coronavirus. Guys, just be careful which bat soup you eat. If you guys do eat bat soup. There you go. Yeah, so Highcast is now a moderator. I forgot that I was going to do that, so there we go. Do you think China's new virus will actually affect transit? Yes, it will affect the transit. So China has a lot of holidays that are coming up, including the Lunar New Year and all that. And according to some of the sketchy news we've been getting, there's not that much news coming out of the CCP. And some people are saying that there's, hundreds of thousands dead, or, there's probably not. And there's probably, the death toll at this rate is closer to what they say, but with the World Health Organization not being able to go in there and confirm these numbers, that's what gives rise to alarm and saying, okay, what's going on with China? So they are shutting down transit of what's going on and trying to shut down travel as much as they can. But at this rate, the cat's out of the bag. I don't think necessarily it should be that much of a problem. Whenever we had the bird flu scare and the swine flu scare and all of that back in the good old days, that it didn't really get to the point that it was going to kill everybody. So it's probably going to be contained. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. So hopefully not too many people die and people are safe, and this just gets over here. Corona wave, that's a is that what we're going to be listening to 2 years from now in our underground bunkers as we prep for the coronavirus? We'll just be listening to our corona wave. So this next article that I got is also from trains.com, which I thought was rather interesting. So I mentioned before about the last video about China's autonomous high-speed rail train, which I took very, I say that was very interesting to see. So we could be saying the same thing over here. So really the first autonomous testing for rail transit. Actually, let me see if I can bring this up. Rio Tinto autonomous train. This was actually the first one that came up. So, not their mining trucks. So Rio Tinto's a massive company, mining company, and they do trains as well. So, train. There they are. Yeah. So the world's first fully unmanned train officially in operation. So they hold a whole ton of coal over here, about 62 miles without a person on board. Now, granted, they did have somebody in a car traveling next to the train to make sure that, let's make sure it doesn't speed off and steal all our coal or something like that. But this was really cool. And this was also featured in the last documentary that we did on the future of trains in the world. So, documentary on future trains and transit. So, this is pretty cool. There's nobody inside the cabin. So, there's no conductors, no engineers, nobody there, and it's just going on by itself. Now, it's simple. The technology is already here for autonomy and autonomous transit. It's been here for the longest of times. It's just a lot easier on a train, and it's been implemented since the 70s and the 80s to have autonomous trains because they only travel in, two directions, forwards or backwards. And then you have the occasional track switching, and then they'll just go ahead and switch on the tracks, and even that can be automated. The entire system for example, Miami-Dade People Mover, what they call the Metro Mover now, that's been automated for the longest of time. So, it's not that hard. So, seeing that this is going to be now coming to American railroads is going to be very good. Yes, iron ore. I apologize. It's not coal. It's iron. Yeah, there's a lot of iron deposits in Australia, so it's not coal. I should have known that already before. Will there be an American Train Part 2? That's from Rennell Reed. I have before years ago said that I was going to do an American Train Part 2, and I did come out with trailers for that. However, that never came up because we had a couple of we had several interviews lined up, and it never actually came out to really getting started. So probably at this point, we will do another American train documentary. We'll do another documentary type movie. Again, it's just going to take some time to line up some people. So before I go ahead and lay the gun on it, I'm going to make sure that we get some people lined up and interviews so we can do this and try to make it more not just focused on Florida, but focus on some other places around the United States to make it more varied. Alrighty. Oh, we just got a donation. Thank you, FLNY Mike. Awesome. From the FECRS Facebook, bright orange equals Ruba Museum, 3M, bright blue, discover the palm trees, Lily Pulitzer, bright green, FPL, reduce your carbon footprint. By the way, enjoying the stream. Thank you. I'm enjoying all of you here. So we have 47 people here right now, so that's pretty good. Someone said, rest in peace to people who want to be train drivers. Well, not rest in peace to people who want to be train drivers, because I'm pretty sure some sort of legislation will come in that somebody has to be inside the train at all times to do that. There's a quote that says, the factory of the future, I've said this before in another live stream, the factory of the future will only have one person and one dog. And the person will be there to play with the dog, and the dog will make sure that the person does not play with the machines. So, again, regulation, and really the technology is here that it can already happen. So if you could hack a Tesla and just go ahead and not make it, do you have to have your hand on the steering wheel all the time, it will go ahead and do it. It's already there. What's not here is the regulation, and the laws that are pertaining to automation have not caught up to technology, and that when it does catch up to it, that's when stuff is really going to happen. Now, in terms of when it's going to happen, most experts are saying that automation for trucking and for railroads is not going to happen until maybe the end of this decade and the 2030s. But most experts say that they're not nice. I sat on a logistics magazine webcast this week and was listening to all of this because, again, that's part of my job of what I do. So I am in the logistics industry and manufacturing, so I do make sure that I still see this. So I still have that connection and leeway to see what's going on in the rail industry too. Don't get me wrong. That's why I'm able to do all this analysis and see all this stuff and at least keep up going with ARC. But especially this year, since it's an election year, it's going to be a very hectic year, and it's going to be an unstable sort of year. That's what we're seeing in the economy. Let's see what some other comments here. By the way, that was just about Brightline's new wraps. Yeah, I heard. So I was interesting, seeing that. I mean, if they haven't done the Virgin Trains liveries yet in those wraps, so I mean, I was thinking those were going to come up soon. Yeah, well, I think that, in my honest opinion, I think the tech is here. It's better than some people driving. Let's put it that way. Most people driving, I don't trust. I'm torn between either applying for FEC or Brightline. Why not both? You can't. You don't have a limit on how many applications and job applications you can do. Just try it. What you should do, if you are applying for jobs, and I do recommend this for anybody that is applying for a job, because I know a lot of you guys are, younger and are just getting out of college. But if you are applying for a job, make sure that you know somebody in there, or somebody who knows someone who works for the company you want to work for. That's the way to get in. But this is pretty cool, and the reason why I think this is really changing the way how we get around America, especially when it comes to precision scheduled railroading. So for those of you who don't know, precision scheduled railroading, or PSR, this was a method created by Hunter Harrison, who worked for CSX, which is basically a way of saying this lean management for the railroad. So they make sure they can cut up as much as possible in terms of cost. That includes massive layoffs of people and making sure that they're probably, running these trains, 24/7, some of these trains that are just being overworked for hours and hours on end. So they don't have to, all they do is just replace them with another train. They don't have to go ahead and lead them in the yard and go ahead and repair them. They're just, slamming through train by train. Harrison started it on IC, yeah. So basically what this is, and I think this has a lot to do with precision scheduled railroading, is that if you can have automation with that, you wouldn't have to have a person now on board. So now that's just a lot less money that you have to now spend in terms of the railroad. This is the way the railroads are thinking about it. They don't have to spend for the salaries or the Medicare or the healthcare or anything else for now some of these people. They can just, instead of having 10 drivers, they can just have 5 or 2 drivers, and they can just have them, one in one train, and then just have them, skip to another train, and they're not doing that much work in order to keep these trains going. So, in a sense, I mean, not autonomous, but they will say that, it is going to change the way that people do get around. So again, they're all talking about cost over here. So it's $156 per mile for a rig, and that's in trucking. So it says, although trucking costs will become lower than intermodal's $127 per mile cost with single driver platooning, it would not be until full autonomy arrives that trucking costs would fall below carloads cost of 91 cents per mile. So in terms of highways and in terms of trucks, autonomy in trucks is going to be a little bit different. And I don't buy this whole thing that there's a driver shortage. And I have a couple of people that I know who do work in who are truckers and whatnot. There is no driver shortage. Okay, if you hear people saying that, they're either lying or ignorant. There is no driver shortage. It's just that these trucking companies are not paying the same wages that they used to before, and it's a lot easier for if you're a driver or if you're you have your CDL and you want to drive for a living. It may be easier, and you may pay less in cost to go ahead and drive for Uber per mile most of the time than the rates that they're giving in for these truckers. So again, that's the whole thing that's just changing in this entire country of what is going on in terms of jobs, and our generation is going to get the brunt of it. Okay, the boomers are already gone, and they're already retiring. It's already over for them. We have the torch now, guys. This is it. We have to make the choices and decisions here. That's why again, it's not to black pill everybody. It's to make sure that we don't give up. Okay, because the one who wins is the one who doesn't give up. And I'm not giving up on this, no matter how bad our government gets, no matter if we get into a civil war or not. I'm not giving up on making sure that we get sensible and rail transit that is applicable for this country, and it is, right for the age. And that's what we need. David Mitchell said they're already doing the planning between high-speed rail line between Atlanta, Georgia to Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, there are a couple of plans on there, including Amtrak has mentioned that as well, and Brightline has mentioned that. Ramble said, let's hope that we don't screw up as the boomers did. Let history and the future forgive us. Yeah, again, it's it's in our hands now. That's what we got to do. So again, not all millennials, but we got and not all Zoomers or Generation Z, but we got something to do. So good thing to happen. So I do have some good news, guys. So the feds have approved a permit allowing Amtrak to move its next-gen high-speed train testing grounds over in Hornell, Colorado. So this is pretty good. So Alstom is growing their facility over in Hornell, Colorado, which is good. And Chuck Schumer actually made a comment on this, and he was the push for this, releasing a following statement, or as our president calls him, crying Chuck. So Chuck Schumer did release a statement saying that it was good that the FRA approved this in a timely manner, which funny enough, the FRA approving anything in a timely manner is just a couple of blue moons and the tide in a complete angle at some certain place, but it does happen sometimes. So the FRA approving Amtrak's request to move its next-generation high-speed train to its Colorado test track is a critical step in getting these state-of-the-art trains on track and improving reliability, service, safety, and capacity for all those who travel the critical Northeast corridor. So this is very good, and they're going to be testing the Avelias over there, and hopefully, this advances the United States in terms of having high-speed rail. Now, again, the Avelia is an advanced train set. It can go up to 200 miles an hour. However, it cannot do that in the Northeast Corridor because of the dismal state of the Northeast Corridor's infrastructure. You have some bridges and tunnels there that are predating the Civil War. That's how bad it is. Chuck Schumer is a joke. Yeah, the whole government is a joke half the time. The unions are getting a little too pressured on trucking benefits. Yeah, and that's the thing. There's a whole lot of back and forth of what's going on in the trucking industry. I do follow the trucking industry because, it does affect rail travel. It does affect freight rails, okay? You need both trucks and trains. We can have both, okay? I do think we have a little bit too much emphasis on trucking, and that's why, you're having more accidents happen. You're having more people that are getting burnt out on trucks, and they're losing sleep. They're doing crazy stuff on the roads in order to keep up with a lot of the regulations that happen, including the Obama break, as truckers call it, which truckers are supposed to have a mandated break in between their shifts and drives. So that's why they have to drive even faster when they get off their break in order to make time. So it's crazy. DOT, we don't want to build high-speed rail because we only want things that would only benefit billionaires. Everyone else can suck it. That's from Moises Nunez. Yeah, and again, government is filled with a lot of people that just want to keep the status quo. That's really all it is. If you're living in a system that you're getting paid and you can be able to continue to get paid more by just keeping the same people, in power and keeping your friends, in check and in your pocket, why change anything? But here's a good thing, though, and this is not our country, so we're going outside of the country. So if you remember that I mentioned there was a Hyperloop plan over in India to connect Mumbai and I think Ahmedabad or Pune. Mumbai to Pune by Hyperloop 1, Virgin Hyperloop 1. Let's remember, we live in a weird timeline that Virgin is also Brightline, that the company has Brightline. Well, we don't know how much of a stake they have in Brightline, but they have it enough that they've rebranded it to Virgin Trains USA, or they will rebrand it to Virgin Trains USA. But you also have Virgin Hyperloop 1, which I don't, now that I think about it, why is it Virgin Trains USA and not, you have Virgin Trains USA and not Virgin Pod and Tube? If we're going to keep that same naming convention. Because that's what it is. It's a pod and a tube. But this is crazy. So, India just had some elections and local elections over here. So, this was planned that they were going to build a Hyperloop between these two cities, major cities in India. There's a massive amount of people in India. There's 1.2 billion people. So, you can imagine the size of these cities. But it's 2020. India is not yet a superpower in the sense they want to be. So I don't think that a Hyperloop is really the best option for travel in India when they got massive problems in infrastructure, including their own trains, just pretty bad. And you think our trains are bad? We can look at India and their infrastructure. There's people getting killed left and right on these trains, and these trains are just falling off half the time. But this was actually a good thing that happened now for the Indian people, that they don't have to be, on board with this terrible boondoggle and, something that does not exist. So this was pretty good. This is a quote from the Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar, and he said, "Hyperloops have never been constructed anywhere in the world until now, so let this be tried somewhere else before us. Once it is successful, then we can think about it." So this is, it makes perfect sense. Why even try to build something that hasn't even been completely tested yet? Now, there is a negative to this story. So the same government's in charge now. They're sort of parliamentary or congressional type of system. Thackeray, I think that's the coalition or party that's running India. I'm not so much into Indian politics. But they also canceled, or they're putting on hold, the Shinkansen project that Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, India and Japan respectively, have worked together to make happen. So now that's going to be on hold. Most likely the Shinkansen has more of a chance of happening than the Hyperloop, because there is no Hyperloop that doesn't exist, and whatever does exist are silly little science projects in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere, that don't even go to the projected speed and haven't even transported a mouse. Let's be honest. This is a science project that is going to lead to nothing. It is foolish to have the same technology that we already have. We already have maglev, so why even put it in a pod, make it more expensive, and transport, even less amount of people at a slower pace? it's inferior technology. But, that's the thing. At least, hey, India has more sense than some of our politicians, especially the ones over in Ohio right now that think that this project that they're trying to do between Cleveland and Chicago is going to, really help the region. But this is pretty fascinating to see. So let's check the comments over here. Let's see what you guys think. Yeah, basically a maglev pod in a vacuum tube. Yeah, kind of like the ones seen in the bank, like in the bank drive-thrus. Although those are evacuated tube systems. So how technology that's been trying to push this for the last 20 years, and they actually said that Elon Musk stole his idea. So there's been a whole entire thing about that. Yeah, this is the ET. Do they have their website available yet? No, it's just still do. Oh, I guess the website's dead, guys, but Wikipedia page is still here. Yeah, ET3 Alliance, an American open consortium licensees dedicated to global implementation of evacuated tube transport technologies. Oh, it just links right back here. Whoever did this Wikipedia page has no clue what the hell they're doing. Why would I click on the same link to link right back to the same page? So yeah, this has been since the 90s that they've been trying to do, and they think they can be able to have pods to travel at 4,000 miles per hour. Little far-fetched, but I mean, is it technologically possible? Absolutely. Is it practical? Probably not. Again, the whole main issue of transportation is to transport people and goods. Okay? So if you're having 5 people in a pod, and you can only move 5 of those pods per hour, you're moving 25 people. That's not going to be enough. Okay? We have trains that are moving 1,300 people in Japan every 5 minutes. So again, in terms of capacity, the Hyperloop completely fails even against airplanes. So that's not again, it will eventually come to happen. So I said 2020 will be the year that the Hyperloop starts to fall apart. I've been saying it, and it's been happening. So I am completely right on this, or I will be completely right on this. I'm not a complete prognosticator, but it's happening. Now, let's go to Miami-Dade County. Oh, God. Seeing this just makes me glad I'm not living there anymore. Okay? And then people keep wondering, why are so many millennials moving out of Miami? How could this be? How could this be happening? This is one factor. How Miami-Dade collected $3 billion and still can't afford to expand Metrorail. So we talked about good governments, or governments doing good things. I mean, good governments, governments do good things sometimes, yes. I would say maybe 5% of the time. Government's doing bad things? Okay, well, this is news we know about pretty well. So Miami-Dade County, in the last several years, has collected billions of taxpayer money, and then they asked the state of Florida to go ahead and foot in the rest of the cash, and half this stuff never happens. So they've been promising since the 1980s to go ahead and expand the Metrorail over to the northern parts of the county, over through Miami Gardens and North Miami Beach, and extend the rest of the Metrorail all the way down to Florida City and down to Homestead, and to expand the east and western expansion to finally connect Miami Beach to the mainland. And I even came up with a proposal years ago when I was in FIU, which made a lot of sense with a private company, to go ahead and build a maglev between FIU, which is the Florida International University, between the campus on the western side of Miami-Dade County, all the way connecting through the airport, through downtown, and into Miami Beach, and connect that whole entire corridor. But it doesn't matter, because it's a whole different story, and I do have to dedicate a whole entire episode to how stupid these people are sometimes. Okay? Well, these people, I just can't. No, here's so, oh man, so these commissioners, so I'm not gonna even mention it because it's just insane. If you guys have seen the video where I was in North Miami Beach transit during the transit town hall meeting, And you have these commissioners over here, and they're all freaking out when I come up with all their, the corruption, and, we spent all this money and we've got nothing. That was a complete meltdown that they were having. So, it's insane. So, in the spending of Miami-Dade's transportation tax that gone as planned nearly 2 decades ago, the county would be preparing for a milestone in 2021, the 5-year anniversary of a newly elevated metro rail line running 10 miles north along 27th Avenue to the Broward County line. That was the North Corridor, but it never happened. So they had this half-penny tax for the longest of time. This was approved in 2002. 66% of the county said yes on it. So that's a very good majority in terms of in terms of democratic elections. For if you have 66% of people approve anything or say yes to something, that means pretty good, especially raising taxes. Again, half a penny, but for the reason that I was going to be sure. That's why people went ahead and, went to vote for it. But this is just insane, how much money was just wasted into this. They do too many studies. They don't do anything. And then they think the federal government's going to go ahead and foot the bill for everything. So they can't really come up with a cost right. So all this money is really just going back either to the bus system or somewhere else. So, yeah, Stalking Horse says they probably all run with their scissors. This is all they want. This is all they care about is, to have the photo up and that's it. And then they can say that we did something and then, leave it be. That's what politicians live for. I mean, a lot of these people are sociopaths. I'm going to be honest. They are. Half of them are sociopaths. I'm glad I'm not in this area anymore. This is just hell. Yeah, the only time to go on the bus is for a photo op. That's Mayor Carlos Jimenez on a 2018 demonstration of express buses at the South Day Busway. Yeah, this is the only time all these politicians and people will go on the buses to go ahead and have a photo op and pretend they're all for transportation. Then the day after, they go ahead and back into the Mercedes or to BMW and then drive back or be driven over to the City Hall. But this is just insane. Look at this. Last year, Miami-Dade approved the $300 million rapid transit bus system for South Dade instead of a metro rail expansion. This is all they keep going. Just Band-Aids to patch up the problem. More buses. Instead of, doing what we were supposed to be doing and expanding the metro rail. I don't know. Maybe it's the humidity. Maybe it's making them all nuts. I don't know. Tell you what, I'm more clear-headed just living up here. Even though I haven't eaten since 12 o'clock, I'm still more clear-headed than I would be just living back there. So here's a good thing. Let's go move up north a little bit more to New York. The MTA is now studying a passenger options for a Brooklyn freight corridor. So this, I think, could be pretty good. The MTA is to launch a formal study of proposals to introduce passenger trains over the 27-kilometer Bay Ridge line in Brooklyn. And for those of you who are confused, why are they saying kilometers in New York? It's the Railway Gazette. They're based in Britain or in Europe. So everything there is in kilometers. And it's in a system that actually makes sense. Okay, the metric system makes more sense than the imperial system. Let's be honest. Okay, but we'll keep our imperial system because America. All right, we're not going to try it anymore. See some of these comments over here. Did you ever show the letter you said you got from the Ohio people on the Hyperloop over there? No, I have not shown the letter. Let's put that next live stream. I will be showing the letter, so we can all see that and debunk it one by one. What are your travel plans for the year, and when is your next live event and meet and greet? So next live stream, we'll be having a live stream weekly, so we'll be doing these every week at least to keep up with everybody. In terms of travel, I'm probably going to stay around in the Midwest. I'm not going to be spending so much money this year. I'm just going to be staying around here. Probably what we're going to be doing is I do have a video planned out for doing a video on rail trails and how stupid rail trails can be. So we have a couple of areas planned around here, including the old Monon rail trail. Well, the old Monon Railroad that they, desecrated to make a stupid trail, and the Beeline over in Bloomington, which, half of these trails now are either underused or the only time you see them on the news is when somebody gets raped or killed on these. It's pretty stupid. This could be used to be transporting, thousands of people, but instead you want to do some sort of, nice, nifty little, community project so you can be able to go ahead and cut ribbons on the trail. That's really all it's about. Let's be honest. I've noticed I'm getting more cynical now later on. I've noticed people have been saying that I'm just seeing the way things are happening. And I haven't eaten anything yet, okay? Give me a break on that. Should have eaten something before I've done this. I've just been so busy at work this week. Proposals to launch passenger trains along the route originated from the Regional Plan Association, or the RPA, an established advocacy group which assesses the long-term infrastructure needs for the New York and New Jersey conurbation. So I've talked to some people in the RPA. Again, they're pretty good people. They know what they want, and we know, everybody that's into transport and into rail advocacy knows that this country needs a heck of a lot more help in terms of infrastructure development. We absolutely do need it. So MTA has awarded the consultancy AECOM a $1 to $3 million contract to evaluate the potential for subway, commuter rail, light rail, bus services that will operate in conjunction with existing and planned freight operations. The thing is, again, this is just a study. So it's not that they're planning to do it. It's not that it's on the books, because in this country we're inundated with studies after studies after studies of when they're going to be able to do all this stuff and all the beautiful things that they want to plan. Because, ribbon cuttings. But whenever any of these studies happen, most of these times they just fall by the wayside or into the back burner. There was even a comedy skit up in Canada about Via Rail and high-speed rail study. So we're going to be spending your taxpayer money on high-speed rail study. So it's a pretty funny skit. I should do that. Have a Snickers bar. Better, Demetrius? Yeah, better. Still sucks. Yesterday speeds today. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Highcast is completely right about that. Yeah, that was the Via Rail. The skit on Via Rail. I forgot who's the actual comedian in Canada. Whenever they start importing more comedians over here, because I don't think anybody's listening to Jim Carrey anymore. All right. So we got one last... actually, no, that was it. That was all of our... I thought that was another article here that I had planned, but this is just the one I looked up about Rio Tinto and their train. So seems like things are moving along. But when it comes to studies, again, this country needs to have... When we do studies, we need to all gather around, and there needs to be... Whoever's the committee, whoever's, voting on this, they need to pick a plan and then stick with it, stick to the timeline, create the budget, and follow the budget. But most of the time they don't. I mean, they do all of that in a sense, but they don't go ahead and follow it to the T, and that's why you have all these problems that are going on in California that you've seen in the high-speed rail audit that they had over there. Disastrous to, how many consultants they went ahead and hired for what. You don't need that many consultants. You only just need one good consultant. Hire somebody from Germany or Japan, from overseas, that already runs and operates high-speed rail. Bring them over there and say, hey, what can we do to be able to do this? Here's $1 million. Tell us what we need to do. We'll maybe hire your company too to build it after that as well. Now, that's it. Okay? You don't need to go through, 500 different other companies to do that. Now, this is interesting. High-speed rail wins market share. I'll just bring up another article just to keep us up and going. So this is over in Italy, it seems like, the Frecciarossa. Evidence that high-speed rail competes effectively against air presented to Terrapin's World Rail Festival in Amsterdam by Serafino Lopiano, head of sales of long-distance rail at Trenitalia. So this is the other thing that I've told you guys, and I've been saying on the channel for years. The main issue that airways and anybody that's on the, for trucking and for the road lobby and the oil lobby, one of the big reasons they don't want rail and why they fight against rail is because it will take away market share from these other organizations. This is why you have guys like Bob Crandall that goes ahead and spends millions of dollars to make sure that he gets all these boomers riled up over in the Treasure Coast to go defeat All Aboard Florida back in the day. So it happens. Okay? He still has millions of dollars vested in airline companies, of course. Especially if he lives in the area, it's a perfect cover for him to go ahead and say, I'm not doing it because I have special interest or anything like that. I'm doing it because, we need quiet areas and quiet country clubs for us old folks. I mean, we can't have those kids in their trains coming in. How could we? Yeah, Holly did tell me I should eat, and I didn't listen. You know, like I said, sometimes women know best, and you should listen to them when they tell you to eat. It's the only time when I listen. I'm kidding. I listen to you a lot of times, honey. There are areas in the U.S., for me, that rail systems would be very good if they were still in service but have been turned into trails. That's by David Mitchell. Yeah, it's absolutely true. You know, and there's a lot of places, especially in the Midwest, and areas that are less populated, or in urban areas that are encircled by a lot of suburban areas that are now growing. So, for example, here in Indiana, Indianapolis is encircled by a whole bunch of other smaller cities and towns. One in particular is the Fishers area up in the northeast quadrant that has been growing, and it's actually, I think, rated the #1 city to live in the United States now, or has been, you know, one of the best top cities to live in the United States. It's an amazing place. I do love going over there half the time because driving over there is actually easy, and that's because Fishers is the #1 city in the United States to have roundabouts. They're actually the place in the United States with the most amount of roundabouts. So it's something in Europe that makes sense. But, you know, again, I say what makes sense. For driving, having roundabouts is a lot safer and a lot more efficient, space efficient and speed efficient than having traffic lights. And it also looks a lot nicer, and it's a lot of fun, especially when nobody's there at night and you just, you know, you're in your 2JZ Lexus and all of a sudden nobody's there and you step a little bit on the gas and press the e-brake, go around the roundabouts. But I never said that. I never, I don't condone or deny or anything. You know what I'm saying, guys. Yeah, I love roundabouts too. There are only a handful of roundabouts in Phoenix. You see, look, and yeah, diverging diamond interchanges. So there's a lot of diverging diamond interchanges as well. People get confused about it. It's like there's nothing you get confused about diamond interchanges. It's just one way to go. You just follow where to go. That's all. Am I the only guy who doesn't like the roundabout? Why are you guys easily confused by roundabouts? All right, Holly, I forgot to do this for you too, so here you go. I dubbed the moderator. Where's, hold on, wait. There you go, I got the perfect picture. Dubbed for moderators. There we are. I love that picture. I think, yeah, Holly found it somewhere in her storage, and I said, I want that picture, give it to me. I've seen that painting in a whole bunch of different places. I want that next to me. I used to love, or I still love medieval culture and history. I did a whole, I don't know how many presentations and speeches and papers I did back in elementary and middle school on life in the Middle Ages and research. But again, this is interesting to see. So back on this, just to close this out, because we're at 8:59 and it's almost 9 o'clock. Since the launch of the Frecciarossa brand 10 years ago, he said, rail's share of the market on the Rome to Milano corridor has grown from 36% to 67%, with Train Italia services competing head-to-head with our friend, open access operator Italo NTV. So for those of you who don't know, Italo NTV is a private company, actually headed by, I think still headed by, correct me if I'm wrong, by the former CEO, Montezemolo of Ferrari. So a lot of people were calling it the Ferrari train. It actually looks really cool too. So that's the Frecciarossa you see there. Let me just show you the NTV Italo tray, because it's really cool. I like the style of it. I like the color. Where is it? Who are these people? I don't care about of course I know these celebrities. I just don't give a shit about celebrities. I honestly don't. And there goes my watch saying that I've been demonetized. So that's the Italo train. Looks pretty cool. It's Alstom, so it's all these are, the cool thing about these is that all these wheels, darn it, I just forgot the word. I do need to eat. They all have engines under them. They all have motors under them. So they don't have God, I need to eat. So this is, again, interesting. The best thing to say about this is that the trains between 300 to 500 miles is basically where the trains are going to win out against both cars and against airways. By 700 miles, it starts to even out. So we've already done this studies before. This has already been studied again, time and time again. Stalking Horse is saying pizza. I could go for a pizza too. That's my second favorite food after burgers. You know, I don't know how I stay this fit, you know, loving burgers and pizza, but I do. I'm enjoying it. In 2007 to 2008, the airlines enjoyed 52% of the market, but their share had shrunk to just 21% by 2017 to 2018. Over the same time, car travel had initially increased from 12 to 17, but had then fallen back to 12. That is scary for somebody in the airline industry. Wow. They lost more than half their market share. That is insane. If that happened in the company, you know, if like that happened in the company that I'm working for, we'd all be freaking the hell out. In 10 years that we lost half our market share. That is insane. But look at that. It's 36%. Now, that's not all Trenitalias. I mean, that's probably, you know, most of it, a lot of it would be probably Italo, or a good majority of it, because a lot of people in Italy and a lot of tourists also prefer Italo over Trenitalia because, number one, the services are nicer, the trains are run more on schedule, and it's a private company. That's usually what happens for a private company. You know, again, they have to compete and be able to make a profit and be able to make money. In order to make money, you have to make a product that makes people happy, and they will keep, you know, returning for it. When you're under the government, well, you don't necessarily have to do that. It's just a, you know, basic principle of, you know, how things happen. Yeah, again, I've been a promoter. What's that? Thank you, hon. Oh, boy. I wanted a burger, though. Okay. Well, yeah, the Doge appeared. Or Doge. As I learned today, it's pronounced Doge, I guess. Meanwhile, Alitalia is close to bankruptcy. Yep, that's what happens. Government-run airlines. Government needs to minimize costs, so expect cutbacks. David Mitchell says there are towns that have rail service, but railroads have been turned into trails, and the town mostly dies off because the trails and crime go through the roof. Exactly. You know, silly things that, you know, government sometimes does. If, you know, if the government were to say, you know, or, you know, the public municipalities in those areas were to go to say, hey, let's go ahead and just give these rail trails over to a private corporation. You know, let them pay the fees for it, let them clean it up, and let them go ahead and run these systems. They will go ahead and do that. Like I was saying before, over in Fishers, Indiana, there's a train station there that was the Fishers train station. I did a live stream about it before, back when I was going up to Chicago last year in March, and there's no trains that go by there. You know, that could easily be a spot, especially in a large area in Fishers, Indiana, which is, you know, it's part of the Indianapolis metro area. There's a lot of commuters that are going back and forth between that area. If you could open it up to have a commuter train, like a tri-rail type of service, except only run better, if they could be able to run something like that, imagine the amount of positive reverberations it would have across the entire region. And not only that, it would serve as a great example to the rest of the state and the rest of the Midwest, okay? South Bend already has their train line system, and they, you know, there's a lot of commuters that go from there over to Chicago from South Bend, which is, you know, 60 miles or so away from Chicago. So, you know, having these systems, you know, like the South Bend Railroad, and having these commuter type systems helps. And then having high-speed rail as the spine between different regions and between different cities, and, you know, that also opens up more travel, more commerce, and more ways for people to get around. That's all it is giving people the option to choose. That is all we're asking for. Not to be forced in a duopoly / oligopoly of just, you have to pick the car, you have to pick the plane. Why not a third option? That's all. That is all we're asking for. Stalking Horse said the cheapest commuter train startup was Nashville. They did it dirt cheap. Interesting. I actually never heard of that. I'm going to look that up. Let's see. We're going to go through a couple more comments, and then I'm closing this out, and I'm eating. Since I live in the Hampton Roads metro area, our dysfunctional bus system and dependence on road-only bridge tunnels are clogging up metro areas. Yeah, it's true. Actually, there was another article that I had about how dependency on cars actually makes it harder for, especially in places like Detroit and other areas where people, need to get to work and, or, in poorer areas and have to depend on a car. Because imagine this, you got a job and it has to pay, it's going to pay you a certain amount of money, but then you're also forced not only just to, pay for living expenses, but now you have to pay for transportation to get over there. And a lot of people in this country, go ahead and get subprime loans on cars, especially cars nowadays. They're made pretty poorly and they're, made to go ahead and, break into pieces after 5 years. It's planned obsolescence. This has been planned since the 30s. Thank you, GM, for another fantastic thing, and having the government support you in doing it. So again, that's the government makes it worse, because if people, if it was just GM and the people would say, I'm not buying your cars if it's going to break down every 5 years. We'll just go ahead and go to Toyota, which is why Toyota has the #1 market share in the world. Go Toyota. The Koch brothers killed the Nashville LRT in early 2018, but Phoenix successfully dodged the bullet. Yeah, and then you have conservative cronies like the Koch brothers and other people like that, fake conservatives that are just completely helping to destroy this nation as well. So you have both the left and the right just ripping us apart in equal ways. All right, last comments, and then we're going to head it off. At 9:10, I'm shutting this down. Shutting down. Speaking of trains, the Washington Metro Silver Line will finish Phase 2 this June. What's your opinion on that? That's been something that I've been also looking at. That's been well needed in Washington. I have gone on the Metro a couple times. It's kind of dated, but I mean, it's at least nice to have that over in the DC area. The stations are pretty cool in their own way. It's like, these dark, futuristic looking stations. Not my type of style. I mean, I love the Grand Central Terminal type of style better. I'm more of an Art Deco type of guy, but, I can appreciate that style when it's done right. Amtrak is planning to build a service from Atlanta, Georgia to Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah, Amtrak has proposed that. They're not planning to actually go ahead and run the service. Brightline has also proposed doing that service as well, because Charlotte is up and coming right now. Charlotte, North Carolina, which is one of the fastest growing cities in America too. So that's another region that definitely needs more transit and transportation and connections to other places in the United States. Except Toyota has weak cars and trucks. Maybe they're modern ones. I was just looking online, just funny enough, just to compare and contrast. What would it take to get what is a new Lexus in comparison to mine? Funny enough, my Lexus IS300 from 2004 is actually faster 0 to 60 than the newer Lexuses. It's insane. So the design and a lot of these regulations, especially by the Department of Transit, and making sure all these airbag regulations and safety regulations are just bogging down to make the car heavier. Okay, they have to make sure that it doesn't crumple up in a crash, and pedestrian safety ratings. Thanks Ralph Nader for that. To make sure that people, instead of going splat on a car, they go sploot instead. So now these cars just look ridiculous. They're overweight. The new Lexus IS weighs like 4,600 pounds or something like that, and my car, it weighs like 4,000 pounds. Weighs like 400 pounds more than my car, which is like 3,800 pounds. Which is insane. My car is a heck of a lot more nimble, and it goes 0 to 60 in the new one goes 0 to 60 in 7 seconds. That's insane. 7 seconds for a Lexus. 0 to 60. My car goes 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. That's ridiculous. And with the upgrades that I have, it goes faster. So, I mean, just because it's newer doesn't mean it's better either. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Yeah, nerfed by emissions regulations. I am keeping my 2JZ in that car. I'm kind of disappointed by the new Supra. Yeah, and the 25-year rule too. Yep, CTR Lee. Yeah, the 25-year rule. We can't get any of the fun cars that the rest of the world has because our 25-year rule prevents us from doing so. At least now we can get some of the early 90s Japanese cars. Well, yeah, we can get them in over here now. So that's good. Yeah, those regulations have messed up the car, the train, and the airline industry, but especially the trains. And really the reason behind the 25-year rule was because it was mostly to protect the domestic car industry and the big three. That's what happens. You see, again, people say that, oh, it's a part of corporations. But corporations can't, have monopolies if it's not for the government helping them out. So if people had a free choice and the big three didn't have, let's say, the government of the United States did not care who was selling cars in the United States and did not support the big three if they were doing something like this, and the big three went to Congress and said, well, we need something to protect us, and Congress said no, people would just choose, Honda and Toyota cars, and, that would be it. And the big three would either have to, make better cars or die out. It's as simple as that. You have companies, sadly, like AMC that, went out, and they made better cars, in my opinion, than the rest of the big three, apart from reliability. But, in terms of that, yeah, the Bailey Liberty is going to look really nice. Well, you're not going to see it fly by in the metropolitan area if you live there. I mean, unless, you live in an area where you're going to see it, go by. Because if you live in Manhattan, you're not going to be able to see it because it's going to be underneath the ground. Unless you go to Penn Station. All right, guys, we're going to end it there. It's 9:11 p.m. So this was a great stream, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And don't forget to leave a like. And if you know people who would love to get on board, share this page, let them come in, and let's go and go on board and keep this movement moving forward. I'm going to also be getting out these caps as well, these Make America's Railroad Great Again caps. These are pretty fun to wear. People are about to go like this to you, and then they see the cap, and they're like, oh, okay. Oh, you live in New Jersey? All right, awesome, yeah. I have a whole bunch of family lives in New Jersey. All right, everybody. That's it for today. We'll go ahead and we'll have another live stream next week, either Friday or Saturday. We'll go ahead and go from there. So, yep. Eats hat. Yeah, I am going to eat the hat here. All right, everybody. Take care. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. Stay on board. Take care. Burger time. Two Freddy steak burgers. Alright. That went better than I expected. Yeah, it's still on. Oh, it's still on. I didn't know it was still on.